Next, from Collinsville, Illinois, we catch up with former State Representative Dwight Kay as he campaigns door to door in an effort to try to regain the district that he lost in the election of 2016. This runs about 10 minutes. Dwight Kay, thanks for joining us again on the All Night Channel. And here we are actually for once back in your district, where we caught up with you as you were walking the district, something that all the lawmakers do when they're running their races. First of all, for those who aren't familiar and haven't worked on a campaign, how does this work when you walk the district?
Well, essentially, anyone who wants to be an elected official needs to get to know their constituents, that is, the residents in the district. So I don't know how other legislators do it or candidates do it, but I tend to walk door to door every day, with the exception of Sunday. Knock on the door, talk about my walk piece and about the issues that are important to the residents of the district.
And just for those who haven't followed your career legislatively, you were in, I think, 6 years, were you a member of the House, as I recall?
Right.
And then 2 years ago in your election, you lost to Representative Katie Stewart. She's a freshman. She's running for re-election. This is her first effort at re-election. Over the last 2 years, you were an executive or had been an executive with a trucking company. What have you been doing over the last 2 years? And maybe more importantly, why at this stage do you have the passion? Because this is not fun walking the district. What drives you to come out here and try to make a new run for the House and get back in?
Well, to answer your first question, I retired in March of this year, 2018, and I sat around for the last 2 years and I watched the General Assembly, and instead of making improvements, they actually went the opposite direction, and instead of improving, they got worse. So it was my impression that I should run for office because I have some experience, real life experience, that applies to what's going on there, at least financially speaking. And it seems to me that that's where they need to kick in the pants, is the financial aspect of what's going on in the state. So I decided to give it another run. And I know it's hard, but actually I like going door to door every day. It's fun.
When you, because you had been in the office for 6 years, do people know you when you come to the door? Or I just talked to someone, another candidate recently, and he said what surprised him as a first-time candidate is how much the voters actually know of issues. He didn't anticipate that they would know as much as they did.
Well, I don't know who the representative was, but I certainly would agree with him. My name ID in this district is very high. I ran for elected office starting in 2008. That was my first run, and I was not successful then. But 2010 I was. So I'm into 10 years here of campaigning for office, either as a candidate or as an incumbent. And so people know me pretty well in this district, and those who don't know me well will get to know me before the end of this election.
When I would imagine, as you already talked, that what drives you is on the financial matters. When you go door to door and people tell you what's on their mind, what are you hearing from the voters?
Well, I'm standing as we speak on Sumner Street in Collinsville. It's an older neighborhood, but it's pretty representative of Illinois and maybe American for that perspective. But what people tell me is they can't pay their property taxes, they can't pay their income tax, and they see all other taxes rising, and they ask me the question, what's next? And I'm very candid about telling them that my friends across the aisle, the Democrats, would very much like to pass a progressive tax, as far as I'm concerned, a 26% increase in taxes, and they'd like to impose a 1% property tax assessment on your assessed value or on your homes, and that would be tacked on to your property tax bill. That really has people afraid. In other words, if you have a home that's worth $225,000, you'll see another $2,500 tacked onto your home, and that's why you see a lot of for sale signs when you travel the 112th district where you stand today.
And you see them around, and of course we've heard any number of news reports about how we have a net migration out of Illinois, people leaving, and often the property taxes is something we hear obviously from people all across the state. We're very far from Chicago, but up in Chicagoland, some people were paying $12,000 to $25,000 on their taxes in Chicagoland and DuPage County and some of those areas.
Well, it's, depending on, where you live and when you bought your home or moved into your home, taxes vary. But, people, as you said before, are informed. And so they get their tax bill and they see an increase, and immediately they look for the EAV, which is the amount the state taxes you on your property tax bill, to cover the bills the state can't pay. And I think they've looked at that and they've said, well, we send a lot of money to Springfield, so I think we've had enough of this.
Is it primarily, are there any other issues that you're running into, or is the property tax really the driving one?
Well, I think the financial instability of Illinois has everyone concerned. I hear the word nonsense used by a lot of people who say, our state government just is run by people who have no common sense, but there's a lot of nonsense there. And honestly, being on both sides as an incumbent and as a campaigner for office, I see that. But people are, I think, at the end of their rope, because I think they have finally decided that it's an unaffordable place to live, and it's soon going to be unfit if something is not done. Other people say it can't be fixed. I think it can, but it's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of digging, because we're in a big ditch.
We have had at least somewhat of a turn up in the federal economy, and I hope that filters into Illinois some as far as the economic activity picking up, and that might bring in more state dollars and maybe diminishes somewhat the need for tax increases. But you and I have also talked, within the Republican Party, there's been a lot of discontent. We had Representative Jeannie Ives almost defeat Governor Rauner. Is that playing any kind of a part? Do you get any feedback on people about the role of the governor and vis-a-vis what they're thinking about Rauner versus Pritzker?
Yeah. Well, I try not to get into too many other people's race, because my issues are my issues, and I think sometimes, all politics, if you will, is local for people who run, and so I'm trying to address the local issues. But to address yours, I'd simply say this, that most people feel like Bruce Rauner's had a pretty tough way to go when it comes to the Madigan crew and the Democrats. And frankly, they didn't cut him much slack when I was there, and I doubt after I left that they gave him much more quarter. So I think that's a feature in Illinois, that Democrats have tried to lock everyone else out that differs with their opinion, and that's why we're in the mess we're in this state.
And I guess it's, would you say this is a numbers game, that the Republicans just have to pick up enough seats to, if not capture the majority in the House, at least have enough votes that they have more leverage vis-a-vis some of the legislation that the Democrats try to pass?
Well, I think that's exactly right. When I came into the General Assembly in 2010, we were within one seat of claiming the majority in the House, and that was pretty persuasive to a guy like Speaker Madigan, who's had power for a long time, because he had to come to the table and sort of play ball with us. Since then, that's not the case, and as we look at the November election, we need to pick up 9 Republican seats, hold what we have and pick up 9 seats, so that we can try and take back the majority in the House and maybe add some sense and sensibility to what's going on in the Capitol.
You plan, of course, to campaign like this, I imagine, between now and November, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Have you done any polling in the district as yet?
I have not. I'm not a real believer in polls. It's kind of interesting. I was up 19 points in the last election, and I lost by 1%. So you have to really question some of these polling techniques. I think some are very good, but I think in general I'm not a real believer in them. I haven't done any. There's been several groups that have done polling, and so far so good.
We often talk, and we have here, about Republicans versus Democrat. To what extent do you run into where it's more regional issues, where we've often heard about the downstaters versus the Chicagoland? And I mean, in your own assessment and listening as you are to the voters, to what extent is that not an issue, or is it an issue in their mind?
It's a very big issue. People will tell you nearly every day, you'll hear 1 or 2 comments about, Southern Illinois is totally forgotten. And of course that's a negative, obviously. But the other thing that kind of irks people in this district is the fact that the Chicago machine has managed to infiltrate Southern Illinois to some extent, and their philosophy is to kind of embrace the entire state as well as its money. So they honestly resent in this district sending money to Chicago. And I'll give you an example to bail out Chicago Public Schools at the tune of $1 billion, which will be the third time in 7 years.
It's getting a little warm out here, so
You think?
Dwight Kay, it's good of you to be walking the district and take some time to share your thoughts with us.
Absolutely. I'd love to do it.